When it comes to barbecue, burnt ends have got to be one of my favorites. Soft, pillowy morsels of meat finished with a delicious, sweet and tangy barbecue sauce. How can you not like that? Over the years, many different meats have taken on the burnt end name. You've got beef burnt ends, you've got pork belly burnt ends, but traditionally they are made from a brisket point, the fattiest part of the brisket with the delicious marbling, beefy flavor, and that's the reason why they're so good. However, if you want to make brisket burnt ends, you got to cook a whole brisket, and that's, well, not only time consuming, but also pretty expensive. But there is also a different way. We call those poor man's burnt ends. Instead of using a beef brisket, we're going to use a beef chuck roast. It's a much smaller cut, less expensive, and it cooks in a fraction of the time, and they come out just as good. Let me show you guys how I like to do them. This, my friends, is a beef chuck roast. Now, I know it's not quite like a brisket point, but it is very similar. As you can see, it is nice and beefy. It's got this beautiful marbling inside, nice and fatty, beautiful thick cut. So we're going to use this to make our burnt ends, which should be very similar to a brisket burnt ends. This guy is about 3 pounds and costs just right around $15, which is a fraction of the cost of a full packer brisket if you were going to go the brisket route. This is a great way to make some burnt ends without spending a whole lot of money, and it's also a great way to try making burnt ends if you've never made them before and if you're worried about messing up a whole brisket. The prep on these is super easy. No trimming needed. We're going to keep all the fat on our chuck roast. Any of these bigger fatty pieces inside we'll just cut out after they are cooked. To start, I'm going to hit them with a little hot sauce for my binder. This will add just a little bit of spice to our burnt ends, and it's also going to help the seasoning stick to the meat. So go with a nice even layer. You can also use a yellow mustard. Really anything here will work, and don't worry, it's not going to be too spicy even if you use hot sauce. Again, mostly this will act as a binder or a glue to help the seasoning stick to the meat. For the rub, I'm going to go with a base of my all-purpose barbecue seasoning to start. Hit it with a nice layer on all sides of our chuck roast, and next I'm going to go with a light coat of this coarse ground black pepper. This will give it just a little bit of bite and help the bark develop as these are smoking. You don't need a whole lot of it, just a light sprinkle on all sides. Flip these over and repeat on the other side. And this is what you're going for, a nice even coating on all sides. I'm gonna let my chuck roast hang out on the cutting board while I go fire up the Big Green Egg. I've got my large Big Green Egg fired up with lump charcoal and a couple starter cubes, and I'm gonna bring it up to about 250 degrees. But before I put my chuck roast on, I'm also gonna add a couple wood chunks. As you can see, these guys are nice and big, and they're gonna provide some additional smoke while my chuck roasts are on the grill. Normally, I just run straight lump charcoal, you get that mild smoky flavor, but with these, I find that adding some extra wood pieces helps a lot with the flavor. Anytime I add additional wood to the Big Green Egg, I prefer using wood chunks over wood chips. Wood chips will just burn up super fast, and if you soak them in water beforehand, they're just gonna smolder and give you that dirty, bitter smoke flavor. So instead, just throw like 3 or 4 of these wood chunks and you get that nice, mild smoke throughout your cook. Big Green Egg is cruising right around 250 degrees. You're getting this nice, mild smoke coming out from the wood chunks. I'm gonna put my chuck roast right in the center, close the lid, and let these guys cook. As far as the cooking method goes, this is super easy to make. So these are on 250 degrees, and I'm gonna leave them on for about 3 hours or so until that outside starts to get nice and barky. I'm gonna spritz them with apple cider vinegar every 45 minutes or so just to keep that outside nice and wet so they don't dry out. And after that, we're gonna cube them up and then add our barbecue sauce. Our chuck roasts have been on for about 45 minutes. Let's take a peek. Ooh, these are looking nice, getting nice and dark on the outside. So I'm just gonna spritz these guys down. A little apple cider vinegar. Keep that outside nice and wet. And continue on. 3 hours in, and our chuck roasts are looking absolutely amazing. Still super juicy on the outside. You get this beautiful bark forming from all the smoke. So now we can move on to the next stage. Even though our chuck roasts are looking very nice on the outside, they are still not ready to eat. The meat is still pretty tough. Next, I'm gonna cube these up into bite-sized pieces and finish them off with our barbecue sauce. Here's the cross section of our cut up chuck roast. As you can see, there's still plenty of that marbling and that fat inside that we need to render down to get these guys more tender. So far, they are coming along really well. As I'm cutting these apart, now is a good time to pull apart all this kind of hard fat that's not really gonna render down that I showed you guys earlier. So if you come across any of these, pause these out because they are not going to be good. As you're cutting this up, one thing to keep in mind is you wanna be sure they are roughly the same size. So when they finish, they're gonna finish at the same time and you're not gonna have any overcooked or undercooked pieces. Check this guy out. This is why they're called burnt ends, right? It looks super burnt on the outside, but that's from the bark, from the smoke, from our seasoning. It is looking absolutely amazing. After the chuck roast has been cubed up, I'm gonna put all this into a foil pan. I'm gonna add some brown sugar, a half stick of butter, and enough barbecue sauce to get everything well coated. And cover this up with foil, nice and tight. After it's wrapped in foil, this whole thing goes back on the grill, same temperature until those little cubes of beef meat gets super tender. And this is the crucial step of making burnt ends. Adding that barbecue sauce, the butter, the brown sugar, it adds a little richness, some sweetness, and gets those little cubes super tender and absolutely delicious. For this last step, we're not really going by temperature. Again, we're going for tenderness. It might take between an hour to 2 hours, depending how many burnt ends are in your foil pan, but we're just gonna check on these guys every hour until they're finished. Our burnt ends are off the grill, and these guys are smelling amazing, but they are not ready to eat just yet. They are super hot, so we gotta let them cool down. Just like any proteins that we make, I'm gonna let them hang out for about 15-20 minutes, cool down, let them relax a little bit, and then we'll try them out. All right, check this thing out. Beautiful color on the outside. They are looking so good. And look how tender. It just falls right apart. Only one thing left to do is to try them out. Wow, it is so tender, mild smoky flavor, nice and sweet from the sauce, and it just kind of falls right apart in your mouth. Are they the same as brisket burnt ends? Of course not, but they're very similar and much easier and quicker to make. You really can't mess them up. You basically cook them for the first stage to get that nice bark, nice color on the outside, and they go in that foil pan cubed up, and then you just cook them until they are nice and tender with the sauce, with the butter, the brown sugar. How good does that look? You put a tray of these out at your next party or barbecue and they will be gone instantly. Amazing. That's gonna be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and I'll just hang out here and finish eating my delicious poor man's burnt ends.